today we are going to be talking about the old world Warhammer, I guess. Oh my god. Old world? New world hammer? New world hammer. New Warhammer? You'll never believe what we're working on. The studio had to tell us twice. Warhammer, the old world. Yes, for really reals. In the deepest dungeons of the old Warhammer studio, the Council of the Wise have convened, ancient forges have been relit, and work has already begun. So far, we've made the logo. You get the idea. This is a long way off. Years, more than 2, like 3 or more. Definitely not soon. Obviously, this is really exciting news for all of us, and just like the Sisters of Battle, we'll keep you updated with, and just like with Sisters of Battle, we'll keep you updated with more news as the project unfolds. I guess they're slowly rolling out Sisters of Battle updates in 8th edition. I think it's 8th edition now on the tabletop. For those of you who do not know, in 2015, Warhammer the Game of Fantasy Battles changed forever insofar as Archaon destroyed the whole world. Classic Archaon. Everything we knew of the old world collapsed into a void of chaos and infinite possibility. From that tumultuous storm came the mortal realms, heralding a new dawn of unending war in the age of... From the reforged primordial soup and etheric energies of the old world rose wonders we could never have imagined. Armies of ghosts, fleets of ether-powered aircraft, green-skinned brutes the size of horses, and flying sharks. The heroes, villains, warriors, and monsters of Warhammer Age of Sigmar represent the best range of fantasy miniatures in the world. Beloved of a passionate global gaming community. Age of Sigmar. They are cool models. There can be no disputing that. They are cool models for the actual miniatures, but the most successful fantasy game ever. And yet, the old world whispers from ages past with its siren song, meaning people were really upset that you killed fantasy battles. We grow misty-eyed at the memory of long-lost heroes and glorious kingdoms laid to ruin, and of mighty champions whose sagas were sung no more. And of course, much of the lore of the mortal realms has its roots in the world that was, which some of its venerable denizens being the very same that fought across those war-torn kingdoms, along with a small selection of choice magical artifacts. The old world is to Warhammer Age of Sigmar as the Horus Heresy is to Warhammer 40k. That is an interesting distinction moving forward. We'll get back to that. The bedrock of lore from which mortals rose to godhood and legends were forged, and like the Horus Heresy, seeing those mythic heroes in action has an undeniable appeal, as does recreating those glorious armies of a previous epoch. An exciting proposition for hobbyists and gamers alike. And now we have a dedicated team in the Warhammer studio beginning the work of bringing all that awesome back to the tabletop. Exciting stuff, right? If you're itching to jump into the old world right now, you can. There is a fantastic selection of computer games such as Vermintide and Total War Warhammer. The only 2 worth playing, by the way. Like, there's Mordheim, if you're into a sort of more turn-based tactics style gameplay with the Warhammer Fantasy franchise. There's also Blood Bowl, if you want something entirely left field in terms of the fantasy strategy genre. But in terms of the Warhammer Fantasy Battles franchise, they really did just mention the only 2 good examples, Vermintide and Total War Warhammer. You're not missing anything else. Offering a chance to engage in the endearing appeal of the setting. And what next, then, for Warhammer Age of Sigmar? There are some huge, some might say giant, plans for the Mortal Realms. More news soon. For now, we have to keep it heesh. Heesh. So Heesh in the Warhammer Wiki is the lore of light in the white is the white wind of magic, a magical force of illumination and holy radiance. So that's what that Heesh nonsense was about. Oh, I guess I should exit out of those things so that you don't know what I'm Facebooking and what I'm torrenting, which is The Mandalorian, which you should watch, by the way. I might actually do a reaction to those episodes just because I was blown away by them, and I was also not. I was inversely, equally not blown away by the new trilogy stuff. So the fact that it took them this long to do something interesting with Star Wars is disheartening. But the fact that what is his name? Dave Filoni? Is that what his name is? Almost positively not how it's. Oh wow, it is. Yeah, he did the Clone Wars. And didn't he do Rogue One? Isn't that what he did? Dave Filoni, filmography, Star Wars. That's it, Star Wars. Clone Wars, The Mandalorian, Resistance, Rebels, Avatar: The Last Airbender. That's why he's so good. Is because he did fucking Avatar: The Last Airbender. It makes so much sense now. Oh my god, that makes so much sense. Well, of course. Of course The Mandalorian is good. He did fucking Avatar: The Last Airbender, one of the greatest cartoons that has ever existed. Fantastic. I didn't actually know he did that. Was he on The Force Awakens? He was miscellaneous crew for The Force Awakens. Was he not a writer on Rogue One? I could have swore he was a writer on Rogue One. He was a random voice actor on Rogue One, it looks like. Was he art department? Forces of Destiny. What about second unit? Was he at least second? He wasn't even second unit. Wow. He was just... Huh. Yeah, I was really stoked to see what he did with the Clone Wars and all that. He knocked it out of the park. And then to have The Mandalorian. I've watched episode 1 and 2 of The Mandalorian so far. And I don't even give a shit. I'll show y'all right now. What was this even for? I was reacting to Warhammer news. That's right. Warhammer news. Got it. Yeah, but what else we got here? GW announces Warhammer Fantasy returning, sort of. Wow, this right here screams Total War to me. This image right here, this is such a Medieval 2 Total War image. Like, seriously. Check this out. Like, how can you even... That looks so much like... That looks so much like the artwork that they're pulling. Oh my god, look at that. That looks so similar. That's crazy. That's so crazy to me. Reserve your copy now. It looks now that Age of Sigmar is well underway. The JW team has decided on taking a step back into the past and revamping an older medieval fantasy setting. It's loaded to the brim with lore. I don't really think it's fair to call it an older medieval setting, since it is very much so a fantasy setting. I would even say it's a high fantasy setting, much like Tolkien is. Okay, there again is that 30k lore relation to 40k. The old world is to Age of Sigmar as the Horus Heresy is to 40k, the bedrock of lore from which mortals rose to godhood and legends were forged. And like the Horus Heresy, seeing those mythic heroes in action has an undeniable appeal. I think that's actually verbatim what the other article said. As does recreating the glorious armies of a previous epoch. That is exactly the line. An exciting proposition for hobbyists and gamers alike. Yeah. Cool. So, I guess, thank you, Spikeybits.com, for repeating the press release of Games Workshop. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. So, from from everything this sounds like, it seems as though they're just reforging the old Warhammer Fantasy battles in the wake of Age of Sigmar, which has, if you spend any time on social media, Warhammer specifically, social media, tabletop, you will know that Age of Sigmar has not been introduced into the gaming franchise with just open arms. It's been a little bit of a rough launch for Games Workshop with Age of Sigmar, mostly because they did away with Bretonia, for instance. Just for example. And now they think that they could just redo it, I guess, as if, because of the 30k timeline runs very directly into 40k because of things like the Primarchs and the Horus himself and the events that he perpetrated. There are very direct lines that you could draw between Horus and the events of 40k. I mean, even right up to the very most recent moment of the 13th Black Crusade with Abaddon. You can draw those lines very clearly, but with the relationship between Warhammer Fantasy Battle and Age of Sigmar is not that clear. There is not that clear at all, because there is a very definite retcon between the two lores, and I do view them as two distinct lores. Now, the Age of Sigmar lore itself has pretty cool models. Let's just... like, the Age of Sigmar models themselves, I actually like those. Like the Sigmarines, I forget what they're called, the Stormcast Eternals. Yeah. I don't really have anything against them, necessarily. New Treant models. New models for the dwarves, the Slayer faction. Yeah, like I don't have any problem with these models. These are some new Wood Elf models. I mean, these models look great. Like, let's be real here. The models look pretty fantastic. You can't deny that. I think you're just being... What the fuck are these? Are these like storm vermin wraiths? All ages Sigmar 2.0 starter sets reviewed and compared. Starter sets. That looks like Stormcast Eternals versus just some undead. And the renewed death faction, the Night Haunt. Huh. So just Night Haunt is a new faction of ghosts, I guess? Which again, I don't mind. Like, it makes sense that there would be some sort of possibly minor faction of ghosts. I don't really see... Like, making them part of a box set is kind of interesting to me. I would have preferred maybe to have like a kind of undead box set that has a couple of ghosts. I don't know, like a pure ghost army. That seems kind of strange to me. Yeah, but those models, though. Some of these ghost models are kind of silly. But I mean, let's be real here. That's pretty fucking dope. Not gonna lie. All this for 160. It's not that bad. 80 per faction. Still do better on eBay, probably. Yeah, I mean, I don't give a shit. Those are cool. Those are cool models. I don't like say what you want about the actual lore and oh my god, you could say so much about Age of Sigmar lore. Like the actual story beats of it are pretty dumb. They're pretty not that great. But I mean, it had to go somewhere. That's the thing that most people don't really realize is that, especially those folks that think that GW can just maintain on the story that they have manufactured over the years, it has to go somewhere. It absolutely has to go somewhere. And 40K understands that. The 40K franchise has been growing these last few years. You're actually seeing Primarchs come back to life. Demon Prince Primarchs come back to challenge. Come back to challenge said Primarchs. It just makes sense, you know? Like, it actually makes sense from a storytelling perspective when you look at it, but Age of Sigmar just doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't. So much of the lore came out of left field with this. The planes of magic are very much a Deus Ex Machina of storytelling in this regard. Whereas 40K, there's still a very clear sign of struggle to happen. Like, just because Robot Gilliman wakes up, or just because the lion wakes up, or because what's his face? Wolf Lord. Why can't I remember? Lehman Russ. Just because these Primarchs wake up doesn't mean that it's an easy time for the Imperium of Men in the 40th millennium. Whereas, and yeah, I mean, it's not really stated quite clearly here as, you know, we've remade the world and Sigmar is now, or Karl Franz is now God, and he remakes the world and the planes of magic, and yada yada yada. Like, all of that sounds like a MacGuffin. Because it doesn't, like, just having the world reset and then moving forward doesn't sound as dire as Abaddon sitting in the Eye of Terror. And when he takes Cadia there's now a huge gulf running across the empire, you know? Like, I don't know, there's a very distinct difference between how dire the situation is for the empire and fantasy battles in the Age of Sigmar, and also what the state of the empire, or I should say the Imperium, is in 40k. 40k seems much more hopeless, much more defined by the realities of the situation rather than just some random MacGuffin. Because, I mean, nobody expected nobody expected what G-Dubs decided to do with Age of Sigmar. Nobody saw that coming. Even if somebody, like, I was playing a Rogue Trader game where the Primarchs were waking up already. Before any of the books had come out recently, we were playing a game where the Primarchs were clearly about to wake up, and it was going to be a new era for the Imperium. But that really only meant a new era of strife. It didn't mean things were good. It didn't mean things were solved or resolved or even really that much different. Where in Age of Sigmar, they just feel different. It feels like the stakes are different. Ossiarch Bone Reaper. I guess this is... this must be the whatchamacallit. The Nagash faction that we are going to definitely get in Warhammer 3. I guarantee it. Nagash will absolutely be a faction for Warhammer 3. I suspect he will be either the pre-order faction, or he will be one of the 4 factions to come out at release. That's what I bet. And again, like, these models are dope. These models are pretty fucking cool looking. $68 for a catapult. Go fuck yourself, G-Dubs. Go fuck yourself. Nobody should ever pay that much for fucking catapult. I don't give a shit how much you... Okay. Okay. Oh my god. Speaking of somebody who has, like, over 100 Space Marines in his house, don't ever pay fucking $68 for a fucking Ossiarch Bone Reaper's Mortec Crawler catapult. Don't ever fucking do that. Don't ever do that. Same way right here, like these guys right here, Warhammer Age of Sigmar, Ossiarch Bone Reapers, the Mortec Guard, new arrival, $51. Don't ever pay $51 for these fucking models. Please. Please don't do that. Go on Amazon, go on eBay, go on Craigslist, do whatever the fuck you have to do to not pay $51 for these models. People, these are 20 models for $50. That's insane. That's more than $2 per piece of plastic. You're being so upcharged. Don't buy these. Do not buy these. Holy shit. Yeah, go on eBay, go on anywhere else. That's where I get all my models. I do model trading on eBay for 40k stuff. Like, sell models to get new models. Just find cheap models that have been pre-painted that you can strip the paint off later. It's super easy. Go get a bottle of Simply Green and just soak the model, the pre-painted model, in the Simply Green, and that's it. That's it. You can usually find a way better price than buying them 50 fucking, oh my god, $85. $85. And you're 80. Oh my god, y'all. That's so fucking dumb. Look at that. 1 Warden King, 1 Cogsmith, 10 Iron Breakers or Iron Drakes. You get to decide. Not enough models for both of them. You get to choose. You don't actually get both. And 1 Gyro Bomber. $85. Regular price, $100. Oh my god, that is so insane. That is so absurd to me. That is, I don't like calling people dumb. There's something when I was growing up where I would get called dumb when I was young, and it really hit me in a really bad way. So I don't really like to call people dumb. But if you buy $85 worth, if you buy this right here, you're dumb. You're dumb. Mainly because if you take that $100 and you just wait, you just save. You take that $100. You get that $100. Say that you're still in school and you're saving up money, and you just got that $100 and you're super stoked. Buy this. You could buy one of these. And this is what's insane to me about... God. Like, seriously, that's only a couple $100. $100 more. Just don't buy the Gyro Bomber set. Wait until you have the money to buy 2 of those. $200, right? $200. Not bad. You would be paying that either way just because you're trying to build, supposedly, you're trying to build an army of dwarves. Let's just say that, for example, you're trying to build an army to play with your friends. Let's not even say to compete, because that it's very clearly something that has G-dubs involved, and you very clearly need to have official models. But even that being said, if you can get a 3D printer and print those models, you're printing out, you're actually getting wholesale models at that point. You're not paying upcharge. You're not getting upcharged to the point of like 200% per plastic model. You know? Like, you're actually able to print out the things that you want to play with your friends, at least. That's the thing. Like, you can actually print out griffins that are mounted by guys that, like, let's just see. Let's just check it out. Age of Sigmar 3D printer template. Let's just try that. Age of Sigmar 3D models to print. Here are some dwarves. A model, a dread lizard, more models. Or some more dwarves, I should say. Cave crawler, pit ogre. Like, there's some variations, I guess. Lots of terrain. That's definitely the... They see this right here is also an interesting idea. Using fantasy type armor, Primaris proxies. I would print those out. I would print out whole legions of those. I would not give Games Workshop a dime if I had the option to, because I only play 40k. I don't play fantasy tabletop, so whenever Age of Sigmar happened, it was kind of just a meh thing with me. Like, I didn't really give a shit. But yeah, I mean, those are beautiful models. I would paint those and put them on a tabletop game any day of the week. What do we got here? Croc scores, same things. Like, those are good-looking Croxagores. I would absolutely play those on a table. Medieval halberds with shields. The fuck is that thing? That's kind of weird. But you get the idea. Like, there are plenty of options. Heavy Nordic themed. I mean, come on, those are Chaos Warriors. Those are Chaos Warriors, and you can't call them Chaos Warriors. So I understand, but I mean, come on, those are Chaos Warriors. Let's be real here. Great unclean one right there. What is this? Peasants? Yeah, look like peasants. Ratmen. Yeah, those are story Berman. Come on. Yeah, there's no reason. There's no reason. Ratman Flamer. Not warp fire throwers. No. Just flamers. Oh wow, these are actually called bloodletters. And they look exactly like Chaos Bloodletters. Please don't sue me just making this for fun. Please do not tip. Oh my god. That's hilarious. Amazing. Just the vitriol against Age of Sigmar is something to behold. Like, I really don't understand what it is about Age of Sigmar aside from the writing. Like, it seems like there's a lot of fanboyism in terms of, like, it's not my Warhammer Fantasy battles, so therefore it's absolutely atrocious, which I don't necessarily agree with. Like I've said many times, the models are pretty good. Like, you really can't deny that the models are actually decent when you actually take any amount of time to look at them. But the lore and the rules are the things that I see just shit on all the time when Age of Sigmar comes up. And I, for one, am happy that they're moving more towards a fantasy battle type template, even though I have no idea what that even means right now. Because, like I said, I don't really have the best knowledge of the fantasy battle rule set or how it changed aside from the lore. Because I like the lore. Oh, God. I like the lore of fantasy battle. I like the lore of fantasy battles just fine. Oh, God. Why? I like the lore. I like the lore of fantasy battles just fine. But 40k has always been... Why does Nerdist have a Rick and Morty section? Star Wars, Watchmen, Rick and Morty. Is that all nerds watch nowadays? The zodiac signs as Rick and Morty characters. Whoa, okay. Weird. Super weird. But yeah. Yeah, this is definitely a good call, but I don't think it. I think the idea that it's somehow horse heresy to 40K is a bit of a misnomer. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. I think that's strictly marketing speak, and it's going to become quite obvious that it is actually a bit of the opposite, where Warhammer Fantasy battles will become the norm again, and Age of Sigmar will become a more obscure game because of this announcement. I'm pretty sure. I'm almost positive. Like, there's already quite a bit in terms of the models that have been released, and I wonder how. I wonder if they're going to do something along the lines of what they did with 8th edition of 40K Tabletop, where they start resizing a lot of the Space Marines and a lot of the models to where they have just a new size for this edition to distinguish them from the product line of this edition, so that they can sell you more Space Marines. Which, just as a fan, I am really pissed off. I'm really pissed off at Games Workshop because of the new model line. Mainly because I got into, like, I bought some Primaris Marines, and I was going to paint them up, and I was going to have, like, a Dark Angel chapter that I was going to paint up and enjoy, because I like the Dark Angels. I like their lore. I like their Primarch. It fit pretty well into the Rogue Trader game that I was a part of at the moment. Whenever I actually bought the models. And so my plan was I was going to have a Primaris wing that was elite plasma gunners, just lots of plasma. Lots of plasma, just like the Dark Angels like it. And then I was going to have several units of both Green Wing and I think Deathwing. Yeah, I think Deathwing is the Terminators of Dark Angels, and Ravenwing was the Fast Attack bikes. Yeah, I think that's right. But I had went on eBay, like I bought 2 packs of Primaris Hellblasters because I just wanted a shitload of plasma guns from my Dark Angels. And I went on eBay and bought like over 100 over 100 Space Marines from just several random sources, because I wanted to have, I don't play 40K as much as I enjoy just the lore of it, and I wanted to have a diorama of just a shitload of Dark Angels, guys. I don't know why. I don't have any idea why. It's just something that I wanted. And then I find out like the Primaris product came out, and there were several Primaris Marines in that lineup that have a very distinct size difference compared to the 7th edition Space Marines. and standing next to each other, they are night and day. And it is like, I'm going to field them if it ever gets to the point where I would like to play a game of 40K. But the fact that they're releasing a new set of Space Marines, yeah, these new models, just like the Primaris models, Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah, just like the Primaris models, they look good, but these are standard Space Marines. I wonder how big they are compared to the Primaris Marines. Which, in and of themselves, like, all the shit that I just talked about Age of Sigmar, Primaris Marines are dumb. They are a dumb MacGuffin to introduce to 40K at this stage. It's just an excuse to sell models, which it's the same thing with Age of Sigmar. This all just feels like an excuse to sell models, and it's the same thing with returning back to fantasy battles. It's purely a capitalistic venture. It's not even really a matter of, like, I've seen so many people. Same thing with the Sonic redesign, by the way. This idea that when you complain to a company so hard about something so obvious, and when they respond, you're supposed to appreciate that. That makes no sense to me at all. That makes no fucking sense at all. Like, yes, you internet bullied Sonic into not looking like absolute horseshit. Do you really want to go see a Sonic movie? Did you ever? I didn't. I never wanted to go see a Sonic. I'm still not gonna go see that fucking movie, even though they changed the design. Even though I was one of those people who was like, "Hey, that looks like shit," which is totally my right. I can look at something and be like, "Hey, these Marines, they all look cool. They all look cool." But it is a horrible idea, and I hate it, because I, as a collector of Space Marines, now have to collect these new... Like, these Space Marines are larger than the Space Marines that I have been collecting, which is sort of an inverse proportional circumstance to what happened with Age of Sigmar and Warhammer Fantasy battles. The idea that if I want to continue with this hobby, I need to replace my army. And that's the thing, not even build a new army, just replace the army I had with new models. Kindly go fuck yourself. Kindly, like with the most respectful tone imaginable, go fuck yourself, because I'm never going to do that. I'm going to paint and keep the Marines that I have now. And with those Marines, like, I have several thousand points worth of an army. And just because this new edition's worth has decided that I cannot field those units, fuck off. Alright, same thing with Fantasy Battle, Warhammer Fantasy Battle. We didn't need it, to be completely honest. I guess to kind of get to the point of this rant, we didn't need it because you already made the decision, G-dubs, to go forward beyond the setting. You decided that Warhammer Fantasy Battles was not the thing you wanted to pursue, so you moved past it. And the way you moved past it was very, very clumsy. It pissed off a lot of people. And now that you want to go back, it makes it even more awkward. I get that there's a lot of excitement to go back to that setting, But the overall plot has been lost, I feel. Because the same thing with Horus Heresy. It works for 40K because we can go back and experience these events while also looking forward to, like, Gilliman waking up, Mortarion coming back, all these other things happening that actually drive the plot of 40K forward. But here in Fantasy Battle, it is plainly going back on something that you plainly have discovered doesn't work. Mainly Age of Sigmar. And while, yes, I imagine Age of Sigmar definitely has the people who are interested in it, and it definitely has people who are willing to invest in it, I have to imagine... Stop it. I have to imagine that it's nowhere near as profitable as Fantasy Battles was, because of just the backlash that I've noticed. And experiencing, like I said, the similar circumstances of buying new models for 40K, I'm not gonna do it. Why the fuck would anybody in Age of Sigmar do it? Like, why? Like, really think about it. Why would a Bretonnian player ever decide to play something from Age of Sigmar? They've spent hundreds of dollars, maybe even hundreds of hours, painting and preparing that army. Even if it's for some purpose, as I've said with my Dark Angels, where it's just merely a sort of hobbyist. It's sort of a hobbyist motivation, where we're just collecting and painting just because we like the lore, or if it's because we are actually playing the game competitively. There is no circumstance where this is okay from a consumer standpoint. Like, I've already made the decision after I bought my Primaris Marines. Like, it went in this order, okay? Like, I already had a few Space Marines that I decided I was going to strip the paint and repaint them into Dark Angels, but I wanted more units to fill out, like, a wing of Dark Angels. So I wanted, and this was, like I said, this was just the Primaris release, so I bought 2 units of Primaris, and I had just swarmed all over eBay to find Terminators and to find just regular old Green Wing Space Marines. And right now I have a box full of Ultramarines that I need to strip the paint off of, and I'm going to paint them up as Dark Angels. And I'm doing this knowing that there is a whole other... I'm a whole edition behind because of that shit right there. They're cool models. They're cool models. For sure. And if you have not collected an army at this point, this seems like a great time to jump in, because these models are beautiful. And like, in terms of the actual putting them together, when I put together my Primaris Marines, I had a great time. I feel like I'd probably have a great time putting these guys together. Like, the Dark Angel looks great. That Dark Angel looks pretty much exactly like my guy does. But I will never paint... I will, or rather I should say, because I still have plenty of models to paint, I will never buy another model from G-Dubs. For sure. For sure. Absolutely. What the fuck was this? What was this even about? Yeah, this is about the old world. This is why it's a rant, rant, and ramble video. Because I don't even have a point to why I'm doing this. I'm just sitting here shirtless, ranting into my microphone. But yeah, it's... Note the appearance of Albion top left. Albion, Norska, Araby, Estalia, even to Leia. These are all just the carrots dangled in front of the Warhammer Fantasy Battles public to be like, oh god, maybe we'll have a new faction. Oh no, maybe. Which was cool about the Stormcast Eternals and most of the stuff Age of Sigmar, but they didn't need... That's what's crazy to me, is they didn't need to completely destroy the lore. They didn't need to have the Skaven rampage across the world in order to have these very particular thematic events happen, where so many other factions of the lore suffer. And from a storytelling perspective, that's one thing. Like, having casualties, you know, it happens. But this is also a story where if Bretonnia dies, that means there are potentially thousands of players with a Bretonnian army that get to watch their army become useless. And that's awful. That is an awful way to do things. You should have transitioned Bretonnia into the Empire, for example. Like, why the fuck not do that? Why not have Bretonnian armies still be valid in the meta of 8th edition, but only have them under the roster of the Empire? Or something like that. Something like where it's not just all of these models that you spent money on and painted. Yeah, fuck them. Yeah, fuck them. We'll just get rid of them. Absurd. It's an absolutely absurd way of running your business and expecting customers to come back to you. That's why your game does not grow. Like, it's been growing recently just because there's kind of a tabletop reinvigoration recently. Mainly because of D&D, but you're also catching a little bit of that, I feel. Games Workshop. But there's a reason why it hasn't taken off in the same way that D&D has taken off. Is because it is fucking cheap to play D&D by comparison. It is fucking cheap. You could play it for free as long as you have a DM that actually plays. By the way, if anybody, you know what? Just throwing this out here for anybody who actually watches this. If you want to play, if you're looking for a DM for a D&D group, hit me up, because I really like being a game master for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, and I've been a player in the Avernus campaign, and I have my own little game running with a few of the same people that you've seen in the Avernus campaign. But I would really be interested in just taking on a random party and seeing what happens. So if any of you subscribers have an interest in learning D&D, or if you're a veteran in D&D and you're looking for someone to play with, leave a comment. Hit me up. For real. Like, we'll get in touch over Facebook or Discord or Roll20 or something, and we'll get a Roll20 game going. And I'll absolutely DM for some of you, because, like I said, this is just, it's a game that I really like to play, and I don't know. It's just one of the few games nowadays that feels like it's actually growing rather than just spinning its wheels, where this is a perfect example of a game system that's spinning its wheels. Total War, as well, I feel like, is spinning its wheels a little bit, and it has been for a while. Three Kingdoms is one of the few new innovations to the series with the diplomacy system that have actually made some headway, where it doesn't feel like I'm just playing the same fucking game again. But yeah, there's so many games that do that nowadays, and just D&D. Just to go off into the rant part of this, react to Ramble and Rant, or maybe this is the Ramble part, I don't know. There are lots of games that just don't innovate anymore, and 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons genuinely feels like an improvement on... I started with 3rd edition of Dungeons and Dragons, and it feels better. It just does. It feels more fun. Building characters, going through combat, role-playing, all that stuff. Look at me. Look at me shining with my whiteness. Oh my god, should I even post this? I forgot to wear a shirt, so should I post this? I mean, it's not like you can. It's not like my nipples are staring at you or anything. So, maybe I will. Maybe. I don't know. Anywho, yeah, I just wanted to share what I thought about this latest left turn from Games Workshop. Really unexpected. I did not expect them to go back to fantasy battles at all. I expected them to go full on Age of Sigmar and sort of revamp fantasy battles into the Age of Sigmar setting, where it becomes like the Bretonnian remnant or something. You know, like there's some new factions built out of the old lore that allows all armies from previous editions to actually maintain a sort of place in the meta. But apparently not. Apparently that is not in the cards. And we'll see. We'll see how it actually comes out. Like I said, with the Horus Heresy game, the Horus Heresy game is a lot of lore. It's a lot of fluff in the books. So when you're actually buying those game books, you're buying pretty much just fluff, because a lot of the special rules can be looked up on the internet, and the core rules are pretty much just the same as your standard 40k game. So buying the actual book is, again, a waste of money in my opinion. But the models there are pretty good. And really, I would suggest avoiding all official material unless you are absolutely into the meta multiplayer scene. But if you're playing this game competitively, obviously you have no choice. Obviously you have no choice but to stick with the meta that they want for you. What the fuck? Why? But if you can get away with it, you should absolutely get a 3D printer, get old models, play with people who don't give a shit about if your models are the up-to-date type or not. I'll just end with saying, while I love Warhammer, and while I love the collecting of miniatures and painting them, you must be very, very critical of what you buy from Games Workshop. Because 10 times out of 10, you are paying way too much money for plastic. For plastic that you have to put together and paint. eBay is absolutely your friend here if you want to collect models. Be it for this new, not Age of Sigmar Warhammer Fantasy game, the old Warhammer Fantasy game, Age of Sigmar, 40k, Horus Heresy, whatever. Go to eBay first. Do whatever you can to avoid giving Games Workshop your money directly, because they are overcharging you. That is so blatant. So blatant. And what's interesting to me is that I feel like it's this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy on their part, because they are charging so much for models and paints, and then wondering why people don't buy their models and paints. But they're charging so much for models and paints because nobody buys their models and paints. So, like, lower your fucking prices. That's simple. Like, I really don't understand. Maybe the manufacturing of these things is way more expensive than I'm giving them credit for. And maybe there are just things that I don't realize about the manufacturing process. But those are fucking cheap pieces of plastic, y'all. Like, everybody knows it. Everybody who's ever put together a Warhammer model knows that they spent way too much money on that shit. And the paint. So yeah, Craigslist, eBay, any specialty site for trading specifically miniatures, do that first before ever going. Because I promise you they're going to be releasing these new models for fantasy battles. And they might even go this new 40k 8th edition way of resizing the models to make them incredibly distinct from the previous editions, so that you just cannot field them at all. Which is horse shit. It is Bretonian horse shit. Like this guy right here, if he was to take a big old dump... Okay, that's going too far. Anyway, I've said my piece. This is just becoming more ramble and rant than react. But yeah, that's my piece. Don't give G-dubs your money if you can help it. There are plenty of people who have already done that. Go to eBay. Go to eBay. Go to Craigslist, Etsy, all kinds of stuff. Just avoid paying full price for these fucking models. Please. Because holy shit, just because Warhammer Old World is coming back just like the Horus Heresy, that's just an excuse. It's just an excuse to sell you more models. That's it. Age of Sigmar is going to keep going strong, and it's still going to be the main game of the fantasy portion of Warhammer, I feel, depending on how the sales pan out. But that's the thing. Even if you had a fantasy army that was made superfluous by the Age of Sigmar, the fact that Warhammer Fantasy Battles The Old World is coming back does not somehow mean that those models are all immediately valid, you know? Like, that's really the question I have right now. Will the rules allow for old edition Fantasy Battle armies to actually be valid alongside Age of Sigmar, or is it a completely different thing? Because Horus Heresy has a lot of the same rules as 40k, and with some minor balance tweaks, it can fit into the 40k battle system, even in 8th edition. It's fine. So yeah, we'll see what happens with the Old World and all the implications that come with that. The lore implications, the business implications, the model implications, what that means for Total War in terms of, you know, Archaean destroying the Old World is kind of a pivotal point in Total War Warhammer. So will there be an expansion on the lore of Archaean and that era of Warhammer? Who knows? I certainly don't. I'm just reacting, ranting, and rambling to shit. So we'll see how it goes. Thanks for joining.